Welcome to Moments, the podcast, where we have conversations that matter. Hi, everyone. My name is Vasia Makris, your host and founder of Moments, a creative agency bridging art, culture, and technology. Joined by my amazing co-host, HardArt, each week we host a live X space deep diving into hot topics that are shaping the Web3 ecosystem. GM. Okay, take two. Milton had to play that song twice for us. Thank you all for joining. I hope you were all jamming as much as I was because that song always gets me hyped. Just going to give it a minute to hopefully fill out the room a little bit more, but just to, start with a little introduction. As always, welcome to Moments, the podcast. It's actually episode 11. We are in our double digits. Thank you so much to everyone who's been following along the journey so far. Thank you to my amazing co-host, HardArt, and also a great DJ. And for Yet, who's on the team and helps produce and get everything behind the scenes in motion to make this possible. It's been an awesome time, great conversation so far, and I'm excited as we wrap up the end of the year. I do want to just say we hit an all-time high. Well, last week we hit over 500 people that tuned in and listened to our conversation as we were recapping Miami. Our all-time high has been over 700, which blows my mind. I still don't know how that's possible, but nothing would make me more happy this Christmas holiday than getting another all-time high. So let's try to retweet this out. Let's massage the algo, as Milton likes to say. Maybe tag a couple of people that might be interested in today's conversation because it is a little edgier and I'm actually very excited for it. Before we do get into today's conversation, I am going to pass the mic to Milton because last week he gave away some bogus and I want him to kind of explain. First of all, thank you, Milton, for giving away some bogus to one of our lucky listeners. I want to give you the mic so you could just break it down and explain what exactly is bogus, and maybe you can tell us a little bit more about what we're giving out this week.
Hey, thanks for having me once again. Good to be here. Looking forward to smashing some big numbers. We got to massage the algo, as Vasia mentioned, to do that. So make sure to jump in and hit the like button, hit the retweet button. Those numbers are jumping up. That's a good trend. Thanks, Dogecoin fam. Thanks, Rachel Wood. Thanks, Yet. You're adding the comments, which helps spread the word far and wide. So get that done for us first and foremost, because we want to have as many participants on stage. If you've been here with us before, you know that the stage at any given time is full. So we can have 10 total guests, including ourselves, on stage. That's normally the limit that we hit every week. So we want to do that once more. Make sure to spread the word and do some DMs, shoot some DMs. I just shot some out as well for some powerful women in Web3 that we can have on stage, like the Dogecoin family, like Violet Jones, like Rachel Wood, like Daniela Jasmine here with us. We've got a lot more of you in the crowd, in the community. So again, help spread that word. People are a little sleepy this morning, apparently, but at any given time, we might have 500 to 700 people in the space. So I want to run that back. So let's build some respect, like Aretha was talking about, for our women in Web3. We need your help to have women join us today in order to do that. So last call to action, like, retweet, DM, do the dance, if you will, and spread the word. But yes, last week we had one of the powerful women of Web3, Wildflower Fields, who was a big hit, saw her art in many, many places, including One Love Art DAO's event. And there was another event that she attended that had a positive impact. If you've been on the show before, you know that we like positive impacts in Web3 because as you're aware, we've got a lot of negative impacts that we have to fight against. So we can use all the positive news that we can get. And one of those events was a suicide prevention nonprofit event thrown by NFT CLT and my friend Diamond. And they had a great response with children. We know we got to teach them, start them young. That's what part of the conversation is about today. We've got to get the news out to the kids, have a positive impact. And this went to suicide prevention information for kids starting at an early age, which was great to see. And Wildflower Fields also spammed our message, which I appreciated. We didn't mention that, but go ahead. If you want to spam the comments section, we had over 60 comments last week, which was a great timeline featuring a lot of the events, a lot of the photos, and a lot of, like I mentioned, the positive impacts that we saw last week from some of our great event throwers like One Love Art DAO, like NFT CLT. So that was great to see. And Wildflower Fields won $25 in Bogus. Bogus is a project that Vasia and I both work on. It's a meme coin project that embraces the absurdity of crypto in the world. So we are a carefree collective that likes to embrace absurdity and give away money. I've got a personal stash that I'm giving away. So last week, Wildflower Fields won $25 in bogus, which was a little over 20,000 bogus. I want to do the same today. So start filling up those comments. Get those comments out there. We do like content. So if you've got photos or videos, that's one of the reasons that I chose Wildflower Fields last week, outside of the positive impact that she was showing. But the content there, the photos, the videos are really helpful to give people who weren't able to make it to those events, give them a peek inside what was taking place. And you get to see a bunch of smiling faces from the little kiddos last week at that NFT CLT suicide prevention. So please do it again. Run it back. Let's do it one more time. I'm happy to give away another $25 worth to the best comments on the feed. We've got 4 comments so far. Let's pump those numbers up, people. I know we're better than that. So start to share away, and we'll give away another prize reward. I'm going to hand it back over to Vasia to introduce the topic today, which is spicy. I can't wait to start this combo.
Yeah, I'm excited for this one too, Milton. So it's a little different than our usual, but I read this tweet the other day and it immediately caught my attention. And for those that know me, I'm very opinionated on this topic. So Laura L is a repeat offender. This is actually the second tweet of hers that I've selected. So clearly I'm a fan, not just of her comments, but more importantly, honestly, I really respect the fact that she feels comfortable expressing her opinion. And oftentimes this takes a lot of courage. So Laura, first of all, thank you. She's not able to join. She's vacationing right now in Ireland, a much needed vacation. I just want to shout out and say congratulations on her recent Sotheby's sale. But Laura, enjoy the vacation. I know you're going to be listening back to this. Thank you for putting out your opinion the other day. I did pin the tweet up top, but I'm just going to read it for everyone real quick. So she wrote, back in the day, women couldn't have careers or real job options. A lot of them ended up in brothels just trying to survive. They couldn't even imagine working alongside men in politics, finance, law, or any of the other fields. Fast forward to now, and we've got women getting publicity like it's an accomplishment to sleep with X amount of men in a day, when there are so many opportunities for out there for us. The women who fought for our rights and equality must be rolling in their graves. It's disappointing and sad as hell. So this post is not necessarily about women in Web3, but I do think that there's certain parallels to mention. So again, if you know me, this is something I'm pretty passionate about, not just as a female, but honestly as a former teacher. I'm not yet a parent, but it's definitely obvious to me certain behaviors that are being normalized in today's society are also starting to trickle down into the younger generation. And ultimately, that is where the big problem for me lies. So before we really dive into the conversation, again, I just want to encourage people to join the stage throughout the conversation. This is a discussion. I also want people to feel comfortable posting their thoughts on the thread. Milton and I are going to be going through those comments. And I just want to mention that this is also not a conversation just for females. There are a lot of men in this industry. Obviously, it's male dominant, and it's also important for men to feel comfortable to be a part of this conversation too. And the biggest shout out to HardArt, Milton, my amazing co-host, but also someone that I've got to interact with a lot IRL. We've been to a bunch of different events. Hats off to Milton and men like Milton in this space that have always made me feel comfortable, supported, like all of the above. So Milton, I'm super excited for today's conversation. What are your initial thoughts just right off the rip? Any comments on Laura's tweet?
Yeah, well, thanks for the compliments, by the way. I think despite all the attractive women that we have in Web3, I've avoided hitting on any of them yet. So I want to give myself a pat on the back. No, but I do enjoy having women here. I talked about it last week. Having just women in the space is good energy. There's been some events that we've attended recently that was 99% men. Man, we need more women like you, like people on stage. I already gave shout outs, but Rachel Wood, Dogecoin fam, Violet Jones, Daniela's here in the crowd. We need more of you. You bring such positivity and so many great things to our space that we want to celebrate. And you're strong and you're proud and you're publishing books like our friend Supermodel Gamer, and you're talking to United Nations like Supermodel Gamer recently did with her book, and is sending more women like her. Now she's on a council doing that. So I want to see this positivity being built up for the right reasons. And I think we're going to talk today about a mix. You know, it's okay to be beautiful. It's okay to flex beauty. that's perfectly fine. And there is a healthy mix between the two. Just want to make sure that it's a slippery slope. You don't get known for one versus the other. So beauty and brains, a lot of times people will get associated with the former, not the latter, if they start to flex beauty and beauty only on the timeline or IRL. So yeah, I think it's going to be a good conversation about that balance that we can strike today. And I'm looking forward to getting it kicked off because we already have those amazing speakers that I just mentioned and more. Lady Christina V, for example, just hopped in. She's one of our strong women in Web3. I can't wait to have a stage full of me and a bunch of amazing women in Web3 today.
Thanks, Milton. You already mentioned a couple of great points that we're going to definitely dive into. Before we really get into it, I think it's important to just set the stage and clarify what I mean by influencer culture, because that is part of the title of the space. And more importantly, like why I have a problem with this influencer culture. So taking a step back before we dive into Web3, just talking about current trends in society, I specifically can't stand the whole cookie cutter influencer model that so many young girls especially idolize. So the fact that, especially in America, the fact that we know more about the Kardashians, yet most of us can't name the first woman scientist, astronaut, doctor, etc. Like, that's crazy. We're idolizing the wrong individuals. And a lot of these influencers and celebrities, they ultimately don't even provide any actual value. So for me, this creates a major problem when young girls are looking up to them, when they're focusing more on their looks and not their education. Like, I would see students that were late elementary, middle school, and it's like they didn't care about learning, but they knew all about the latest makeup trends. And instead of focusing on the right things, I think younger and younger, because of social media and all these other factors, we're seeing it impact girls in a very negative way. And what's even crazier is like the whole normalization, like the fact that the sugar daddy culture has become normalized is a problem for me. Like, I think it's a problem when females become dependent on a male. And I'm not coming at this from the ultra feminist perspective either. Trust me. I love it when a man can hold a door for me, or, the one day I can't wait to be a stay-at-home mom and hopefully a housewife. Like, I think that there is that fine line and balance that you mentioned earlier. So again, just bringing it back to Web3. When I was first introduced to Web3, I really fell in love with how the community and the ethos compared to the real world, where we were seeing certain artists get attention and support, and they were being given the spotlight because of their contributions to the space, because of how engaged they were with the community, because of the quality of their work. We didn't really know who anybody was. It was kind of still anonymous, but it just meant like if you had merit, there was a reason why you were getting the support. And we were even seeing celebrities come in and get rejected. So it didn't really matter who you were in the real world. You had to prove yourself in Web3. So for me, it clicked right away. It's like, okay, current society is rotting. Web3 is going to be the disruptor here. That all said, as time went by and the space kind of naturally matured, I feel like we're starting to see this shift into what the current, like that influencer culture is starting to trickle into Web3. So it's kind of turning me off. And then seeing Laura's tweet this week, it just really, I think, ignited this conversation. And we talk all the time about needing more females in this industry, but I think it's equally important to talk about the type of female behavior we want to encourage in this space as well. And leaving Miami last week, it was super inspiring because I got to see a lot of ladies that were making really big moves. And you mentioned Supermodel Gamer, Sandy, and the entire Women of Web3 group comes to mind. I actually posted this morning. They spoke at the UN. They've published a book. Wendy was one of the winners from last week's Bogus giveaway because they were meeting up with kids and doing all this charity work. Like, they're doing a lot of big things that I think a lot of people still don't know about in Web3. And then we have Jen from One Love Down, all the different things that she put together. Like, these are inspiring women, and not all of them are artists, which is cool too. Some of them are builders and they're creating in different ways. So these ladies are hustling, they're making a difference, and they're using the platform that they're building to have a larger impact and inspire others along the way. That being said, in Miami as well, I think we also saw like the contrast. There was a couple of females that were doing things, and I'm not here to attack or name names whatsoever, but they were kind of reverting back to the classic influencer, where it's like, why are these females important? Honestly, it's because they have a large following. But if you ask me what they really do, I don't even know. And so I just wanted to really, again, clarify, I'm not here to hate on anyone, or this isn't a direct attack on anyone specific. This is just me trying to open up a bit of an uncomfortable conversation so we can make sure certain behavior that I'm personally not okay with in the real world is not normalized in Web3. So today, and I'm going to finish up my rant real quick. I already see Violet has a hand up. But today, I really just want to talk about highlighting the right female role models in Web3. I want to talk about focusing on quality and their contributions and really asking, like, what value do they bring? And I want to encourage women to be more than just a stereotype. So, on that note, Violet has been patiently waiting. Violet, GM, I'll let you kind of kick off the conversation. I don't know if you have any initial comments from Laura's tweet or just anything you want to say, but thanks for taking the time to join. Appreciate you joining the stage.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Thank you for everybody who tuned in. Thanks for having me on stage. So, regarding the tweet, like I love when the wheel is being reinvented, and every time something happens in Web3 on the internet, people are like, oh my God. So, first of all, she was not the first to do that. There were porn stars in the past years and decades who did that, and they were also celebrated. It just kind of trickled down to this space as well. I feel that this is totally not what I would admire. I don't know why, like, even us talking about it, it's giving her platform. It's basically like the more we talk about stuff like that, the more attention we draw, bad or good, doesn't matter. We draw attention to it. The one thing that maybe irks me quite a lot is the fact that women in this day and age in westernized countries are given kind of like a golden star or a sticker for achievements. Like, why do we do that? It's like I almost compare it, and some people might think that it's not the right comparison, but I think about racism. It's like every time somebody achieves something, we mention their ethnicity or race. It's like, why do we do that? We just basically draw these lines even thicker. Why don't we just look at the person as a person and basically appreciate them for their achievements? Like, why every single time when there is a female artist achieving something or selling for a lot, we underline that female part? Why does it matter? Why not just artist, a great artist, fantastic artist, oil artist, digital artist, builder, this, that? Why do we have to constantly, mention? Some younger maybe women feel that we need that extra push, but we don't. We are capable. We've got the choice. We choose careers or paths that we want to follow. We achieve something, and we want to be that focus should be on the achievement and maybe our experience and how we did that, not what's in between our legs. Like art
Violet, I
is
think.
very,
Oh, go ahead.
yeah.
Sorry. No. I was going to add on, but please go ahead. Finish.
Yeah, so artists do not use anything else than hand and a brush, like we should not mention these. Like, I just feel that this is the problem where it starts. We should really appreciate people and as you said, right role models, people who have these achievements on merit, not on gender, race, or anything else.
Yeah.
That's yeah.
You bring up, of course, you bring up very, very interesting to kick us off. But this was, I remember when it was happening, in 2021-ish, it was like everyone was anonymous. No one was doxxed. You didn't know who anyone was, artist, collector, etc. And all of a sudden, people slowly were starting to share. And all of a sudden, you started seeing people post and like, I'm collecting artwork from females only, or just like, I don't know. And you know what, which is okay if that's the demographic you want to collect from. But it was like almost like signaling them out. And this kind of goes back to larger than just, Web3 and art. It's, when you apply to a position and whoever's hiring is told, like, you need to hire this, and this. And it's like, well, these people have better resumes and they're maybe more qualified for the job, but I need to now check off these boxes. It becomes a very slippery slope to navigate. And I understand where the kind of logic or thinking behind it
Yeah,
maybe
just
originally
let
came,
me
but
let
yeah.
me reverse it, Vasia, so it makes a little bit more logical point here. Imagine if there was an exhibition, white males only, white artists, male only. Everybody would go. But if it goes the other way, that's fine. Why? Like it's 2024, for God's sake. It's like it just feels wrong, because the moment you reverse it and it feels wrong, it's wrong in the first place. You know what I mean?
Violet, I'm with you. I want to push back for just a moment, though. So, looking at the demographics of our industry, go to any IRL event, for example, oftentimes it's 90% male. And obviously, we want to see that change. I want to see that change. I'd love to see 50%, 50%, even though it's not the most important thing. It's not, like you said, that we shouldn't be checking boxes. And I love your, I don't know, I dropped off the volume. I just cut out, so I had to jump back in. But I love your line where you say, "Don't put a vagina on my art," and I completely agree with that. But at the same time, how do you balance the fact that we do want to attract more women? At least I do. I don't know if you feel the same. Don't you feel like it
Yes,
might be a better space if we did? And how do you celebrate? How do you celebrate the women doing it right? People like Supermodel Gamer, people like Sandy, people like yourself. How do we celebrate them without patronizing them at the same time?
Okay, now first let's go back to the source, to the very beginning. Like, why do women get involved? And what, like, women like everything quite easier, not so complicated, not so techy, not so it's not the problem of the community as much, because communities, and don't mention Supermodel Gamer because she's a genius woman, like she is so techy, so she is a different type of a human being. But I'm talking about women in general. They will arrive in the space where the interface and the systems are a little bit easier. Women have different kind of problems day to day. They are mothers, working probably. They take care of so many things. It's the guy who sits in front of the computer, going down rabbit hole of techie stuff and crypto and researching and all of that. The woman usually takes care of the kids, of the family, of the dinner. Like I'm talking now, like generally, not everybody here, of course, but like what will encourage women more is maybe when the systems are a little bit more inviting, when tech becomes more easier, basically. That's like, but all these events, I understand that there is majority of men, but it's men who just basically get on their phones 24/7, research all of that. Women are not as much, like their tendencies are not there. Let's not forget our like primal instincts and tendencies as a kind of related to our genders. There are certain things that women prefer more, and there are certain things that men prefer more, and women will follow. And we see increase, but we shouldn't force it and suddenly just plaster everywhere like we're encouraging women to join. We just should allow it naturally, and it will happen.
Can I jump in?
Yeah, actually, Danielle, I was
Hi.
just going to give you the mic, actually.
I
Yes.
guys,
Go ahead.
thanks so much for having this conversation. Thanks Milton for DMing me and pulling me in. It's a brilliant topic. And can you please correct me? Is it Vasaima? How do I say that your name properly?
Vasia, it's okay. It's Vasia
Vasia.
Makris.
Thank
Yep.
you. I
No
didn't
problem.
want to butcher it, so I knew how to ask.
All good, all good.
Vasia,
Thanks for joining.
I really appreciate your perspective. And just to preface, so I actually created a private network for women in Web3 by accident. It was based in Lisbon, and there was a web summit going on. And it's so generalized that I wanted to meet women specifically in blockchain. And I made a group chat on Telegram. It started snowballing. And then I was like, maybe I can reach out to ladies on LinkedIn who are from I don't know, like their CEOs and their founders, people I just wouldn't maybe have a chance to meet normally, and invite them to like a get together, like a little huddle at Web Summit. And it ended up ballooning so much that we just couldn't align on when to meet. It was like 60 of us in the group chat. And so I promised a dinner. I got together with a friend who does events, and she and I rented out a restaurant, and we hosted a dinner. It was sort of like secret location, dinner date kind of thing. 39 women came, and they were so impressive. They were in like lots of different types of, they were like in blockchain mining in Africa, and like just all kinds of stuff I couldn't imagine. And we had like a round table, everyone stood up and spoke about themselves, and it was so powerful and inspirational that we were like, we have to have this every other month. So it became like a thing. And I have to admit that before that, I might have even described myself as a guy's girl, because I have a lot of male friends, and it tends to be a little bit more like straight shooter kind of thing, less drama. I have female friends. I'm not toxic and like only have guy friends, but it's just easier somehow. And I have a background in software development. I am one of those nerdy girls who are down rabbit holes and looking at techie stuff, and I'm one of those minority. So let me just quickly get to the point, and that's I saw the power of getting women together and hearing their stories and holding space for their stories. And we just sort of, it was never meant to be a like, oh, we hate men and there are too many men in this space and we don't like this. It was rather, I'm an individual, I'm a person, and I've ended up in this industry in this random way. Everyone had this really unique, interesting way of how they like fell into blockchain accidentally. And they're in teams that are, all men, and they're strong and navigating it and not complaining. But then there's also camaraderie of speaking to someone who sort of understands you and has a different style of speaking, about things. But I just really wanted to address. So that was just a preface, because I am gonna just be honest and say I'm a devil's advocate. So there's something that I want to unpack with that Violet mentioned. And that was about, why do we have to put vaginas on it? And why do we have to be seen as women? And I would argue that since the dawn of time, women have been worshipped and admired for their figure and their form. And that's, their whole religions around women. They were worshipped. So I think that feminine energy is something that also females are attracted to, even in like a platonic way. I think it's an energy and an expression that is very attractive. And I think that wiping it away completely and ignoring it, I don't think that's possible. And I think that we're just in modern times and everyone has a phone and, like somewhere to publish themselves. And I think it's there's just all these diverse perspectives that we're confronted with. And so it might seem that we're exploiting ourselves or that women are being exploited, but I think we're just in a stage of humanity where there's a lot of immature masculinity and femininity, and we're confronted with it more than we would in our normal lives. Yeah.
Danielle, thank you so much for, first of all, coming on stage, giving us that background. Would love to, on the side, just hear more about that group. But I totally resonate with a lot of what you said, and definitely a female that also hangs out with the boys a lot, and it is refreshing when you do get to connect with like-minded individuals and females. And you mentioned this feminine energy, and I completely agree with you. And I think that at the end of the day, all of us are dealt, we're dealt a hand of cards, and it's about using them to our advantage. And it's, if people choose to have that victim mentality, then they choose to have that victim mentality. But it's like using the female card to your advantage to an extent. And Milton mentioned very early on in the space, he mentioned like the beauty and the brains. And that to me is like the lethal combination. Like you want to celebrate beauty. There's nothing wrong with that. And stepping into your feminine energy, those are all positive things. And like you said, natural and organic, and we can't avoid it. And I think it's not about ignoring the fact that we're, females in this space, but it's like, how do we do so in a positive way where it's not overwhelming that it's, we're females or the looks and beauty aspect. There needs to be that fine line of balance. And it's also about representing your value in, take the looks away. Like what else do you bring to the table? And I think it goes back to like my comparison to Web2 or the real world of, the Instagram famous like influencers, right? Like beyond just their looks, what else do you offer? And I think that's, for me at least, the biggest problem and what I really wanted to highlight and open the conversation with, and making sure that in Web3 we're idolizing certain artists or builders and that are behind the scenes, that again, it's just putting the right leaders in place, because we're no longer early in Web3 anymore. Like this gap of we're early is closing, and whoever's cemented in these influencer or leadership roles is who we're going to continue to idolize down the line. So I don't want to hog the mic a little. I'm going to give it to Dogecoin Fam. I feel like she might have had a direct response. I saw her hand pop up. So Dogecoin Fam, welcome to the stage. GM, how are you?
Well, GM, thank you very much for having me. And I think this is a great topic. And regarding your tweet, to be honest, I really feel a lot of. I really feel sorry for this girl. That I know she had to sleep with like 1,000 men within one day, and it's just so much attention seeking instead of just self respect or authenticity or just having respect for your body or your mind or your just everything. It's just much attention driven. And I do think we need more women in this space to just stand for, just being you. Just, stop showing tits and think, just because if I show more tits, I know, Rachel, you're going to laugh about this one because you did a post saying, if I show more tits, I get a lot more interaction because then the guys are going to love me and and they're going to buy my art. So should I show more tits? And I know my response was like, please have a little bit of self-respect. I mean, keep your clothes on, just be an artist and just do your thing, but be authentic, but keep your clothes on, please. It's called self-respect. And I do think we need more women in this space. And actually, you're a great example, Vasia, with your talk, because here in the Netherlands I'm going to try and do something for women as well, exactly what Danielle's saying, to just onboard more females in this space and empower more women to just learn crypto, because there's so many guys that know about crypto. And usually, if you have the old-fashioned roles where you have the male at home, he does the crypto, he does the finances, and the women, they're not sorry, but they're not very much educated on this. So I would like to empower more women to step into the role and just learn more about finances, because this eventually is going to be so life changing. So Vasia, you're a great example, and I hope to set up something in the Netherlands to get females started. But I do hope we empower more women to just, your body is your sanctuary. Your body and mind is what it's called, self-respect. So, and we do need more male, like real, the male are usually very intimidated with females that know what they're talking about, because usually at events, they're all like, oh, female. And then all of a sudden you start having a conversation about minting on Tezos and what are you minting and all the blockchains. And they're like, shit, girl, you know what you're talking about. And then they sort of have, then you're one of the guys, which is good and it's nice. But I would love to see more women in this space. That's my 2 cents.
Oh man, always a pleasure hearing from you, Dogecoin fam. For those that don't know her, give her a follow, please. She's a collector in this space, a female collector at that. So a lot of respect in just how she collects as well and how she chooses to support artists. She's like super fan. She'll advocate. She goes out of her way. She just shows so much love, and she's just a positive energy in this space. So it's been amazing getting to know you as well, and being another female that I look up to as well. Okay, there's a lot of hands up, and I'm going to get to everyone. I'll pass the mic around. Milton, because you're the co-host, did you want to respond directly to Dogecoin fam?
Yeah, I just want to say in retrospect, I do regret being one of those 1,000 men that participated in that. I think I was giving light to the wrong crowd. I'm kidding. No, I think Dogecoin fam has got a great point. We need more people like her. I love that she just found inspiration from Daniela, for example, who seemed to stumble upon a group of a way bigger group than she had intended or thought that could happen, of 60 women, and then forming this group around that. I think that's a healthy way to bring women in. And maybe it's just a barrier to entry thing, and it just looks daunting from the outside or looks male dominated. But I think if you look around this space, I mean, look at the people in this space. For example, it's filling up now, which is great. Woman NFT, Creatress, Merve, Swati are filling in the room. Like, these are some of the best women that we have in Web3 here with us now. And I think we need more spaces like this to celebrate in a positive way. And yeah, keep your clothes on. Join family. That's really sound advice. Have some self-respect and create, and be seen for what you create and what you contribute and the positive impacts you have to this space. It only takes once to ruin your reputation. So be very, very careful. I think that's great. Wise words from OG Crooked West. Just don't fuck this up. Like, don't make any massive mistakes. That's really important as you move through this industry. So Rachel was quoted here earlier. So I'm curious what her feedback is going to be to the Dogecoin family. So we'll move to Rachel. I see Jennifer's hand up as well, and we'll move to Jennifer after Rachel. But Rachel, GM, how are you?
GM. Oh my goodness, such a spicy conversation. And I love it. I love all of it. So thank you for having this space. I know it's not popular, but it's awesome. And just to like give some context to my whole booby post, I posted like, I need to show more boobies and ass. And I posted pictures of blue-footed boobies and donkeys. So just putting it out there, I was not throwing out my boobs. But in all fairness, though, it is a really common question that a lot of women, like, kind of in private, discuss because we're like, well, it seems like I only get more likes or get more sales if I show my face or if I look pretty and put on makeup or things like that. And ultimately, I think it has to go down to intention. Am I showing my boobs because I think it's about the male gaze and it's about other people seeing my sexuality and seeing me as sexy and that's what I want? Or is it because I just really like my boobs and I really like the shirt and it might show a little too much cleavage for, say, my mother and grandmother, but for me, it makes me feel beautiful. I think there's like a fine line and it's definitely like up to interpretation, obviously. But yeah, so I think we definitely, as artists and as women, should have self respect and should have some dignity in this space. I definitely agree with that. And I think when people do certain behaviors for attention, it gets muddled. And like Vasia said, there's a lot of sexuality, there's a lot of sex in just everyday advertisement and media and social media that I think a lot of younger generations and a lot of younger women are suddenly like becoming hypersensitive and then hyper focused. And then that in itself becomes ingrained into what is acceptable to how they should be behaving at very young ages. And I really don't like it as well. Um, I grew up in the woods in a cult. I did not know about the Kardashians. I didn't even know about 9/11. So I was beautifully, blissfully unaware and just like, running half naked, not because it was viewed as sexy, but because that was just how we were in the cult. But, anyways, I digress. Uh, I know there's a lot to be said, and I'm not going to ramble on too much as I know I tend to. Um, but I do want to just say that to talk to the point that Vasi said, like, what should we do in this space? How can we prop up women in this space? And I just wanted to go throw it back to what Violet said, where we shouldn't be having to push out that we have a vagina to sell our stuff. I hate that. I want someone to collect my work because it's awesome, not because I'm female. But I also know, as much as I want that for myself, I also know that if someone were to look at my work without knowing who I was and they liked it, but then they were to learn who I was in connection to that work, that will very obviously change their perception of its value, whether that's good or bad. And typically it is a little less. If This is why I had my name as Ray when I did business in real life, because people thought I was male. And then when they met me in person, then of course that's when things started to get a little like hairy dairy. But I on online and things like that, I came across as kind of like a sort of like male like I guess energy, just because I was more upfront, I was more aggressive, I was more definitive when it came to things, and I saw that double standard. Lastly, and this is like totally like yeah, but here's the rub. This is like where the rub is. I think too many women don't step up because they're conditioned to doubt themselves. Society wants us to be likable. It wants us to be humble. It wants us to be quiet. It wants us to be beautiful. But it only focuses on what women provide for other people. It doesn't value women and what they provide for themselves and what they are themselves. And this is where we get into the opportunity aspect for women. There's a double standard, and I'm not going to rail about it or anything, because it's not going to magically disappear. Success will come with strings attached for women. That is a fact. And it's not just about what you do. It's not just about what I do, but it's a like systematic, ingrained sort of biases that is very hard to overcome. And that's just saying that the playing field isn't level, and it's exhausting to pretend otherwise as a woman. So this is where I diverge from like this whole pity party. Nobody is going to hand us what we deserve. And I'm just saying that right up front. I am prepared to work for it, because we're not going to wake up one day and suddenly find a world that suddenly accepts women. Like, that's just like not possible. Um, um, and so that means, even though the odds are stacked, that women need to keep showing up for themselves and for other women. We need to celebrate other women, like we said, like Vasia said, the women in Web3 and what they've done in this space, and recognize that it's not because it's what they've done is cool compared to what males have done in this space. It's cool because what they've done has been done in this space. And we need to support that. We need to celebrate that, not because it's something like at the same level as male, but because it's actually awesome. So, yeah, to sum it all up, women don't need it to be easy. We need it to be fair. We need the world and the systems to recognize that when we get online, we like Violet said, we might be taking time away from being with our children, or time away from doing the dishes or making the meals, or these are very generalizations. Like, when like my guy friends are online, it's very different to when my girlfriends are online. And we don't need it easy because we're dumber. We need it easy because we're coming from a different situation and different priorities. So I think that truth, that we need to show up for ourselves, that we need to, make space for ourselves and support each other as well as men. And show that it's not we're taking away from men. It's show that we're not going to be, like pushing into the men's crowd or taking away from their fame or trying to belittle what men have done, because this is not a competition. This is a community,
Yeah.
a family. We all have our different roles, and yeah, the world is only going to change when we demand more. So that's it.
Rachel, there's so much that I agree and want to add on to. And first of all, thank you for just sharing. And I didn't know you had an alter ego, so that's an interesting fun fact about you. But I completely understand what you're saying. I guess I want to take it back to your original point, where you, first of all, thank you for clarifying in terms of the tweet that I was looking through. I don't know if you can find it on your Twitter account and want to pin it to the top, but I didn't know that tweet, so I'm glad you clarified, and you weren't actually being more provocative just to sell the artwork. But I think we are all familiar with there was like, I remember specifically like a couple of people calling them out and posting, and like, it's a female posing very provocatively next to her artwork, and the artwork is like in the background, not even the highlight of the photo, and they're getting a bunch of love on social media. So it's like, okay, well, we all know what you're doing here. And it's just, for me, it's just sad, because it's like, looks are just temporary too. Like, what else are you going to do when you don't have that advantage anymore? So it's just like super sad to me, super discouraging. And I also think, like, once you position yourself in that way, it's super hard to change people's perception of you. And I'll like reference Marilyn Monroe, for example. Like, we all know her for being the iconic, like, she's the sex icon, right? And it was extremely difficult for people to see her in any other role. So she really couldn't. She couldn't play in any other, movie roles, etc., because that was her character, and that's what people knew her as. And so once you box yourself into that position, I think it's extremely difficult to get out of there. And I think, again, it's that dangerous line of, I'm all about advocating for like embracing your beauty and sexuality and all of that, but it's that fine line and balance, and it could be extremely dangerous if you close yourself off and box yourself off in too much of one direction. So, yeah, you mentioned a lot of interesting points, Rachel. I do want to also talk about, you mentioned collecting, and you brought it back to Violet's original point, and I'll just end it here before I pass the mic. But you mentioned people collecting not because you're a female, but learning more about you. And I think it's not just, they collect when they know your story more, when they know your personality. Like when I meet the artist and I really fall in love with who they are and I really start to gravitate toward them, like I'm going to advocate for them so much harder. So I think it really goes beyond just I'm going to collect from a female. It's like who is the person as a whole. Rachel, I saw your hand pop up. So if you very quickly want to respond maybe to what I said, and then we'll pass the mic to Jennifer.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think when I was talking about like when they see me as female, they might collect me differently or value my artwork differently. I just have experienced that within the photography world as adventure photographer, as a landscape photographer, and a wildlife photographer. I am just as capable, probably even more so, than a lot of my male peers. I've done a lot of really, really cool things, and I've done a lot of really cool things that many of my male friends, have not done. And yet they are 100% always asked first for certain photography jobs. And those are jobs that I want. And it's not because I'm less qualified. It's because when they look at my resume and then they reach out to me and they're like, oh, you're a woman, never mind. And I know there's so much that goes on behind the scenes for whatever reasons, but I do feel that as a woman, even though my work stands on its own, when they realize who I am and see that I am a small Asian lady, it doesn't work in my favor most of the time.
Right. And I think it's, we're not trying to ignore that at all. There are definitely these situations or even, moments where I felt like I'm talking to the boys club or they wouldn't take me as seriously, but they would take my business partner more seriously because he was a man. So these situations do happen. And I'm not saying like we should, it's obviously a problem, but it's like you mentioned, continuing to work through it and push through it and showing up and not letting it get the best of us. And this happens across, industries. So it's not just Web3. Jennifer, I know you've been very patiently waiting. Thank you so much for joining. Go ahead. I want to give you the mic.
Hey, my pleasure, guys. Such a wonderful conversation. Hi to everybody up on the stage. So I have so many things that kind of ran through my head, but one of the things I wanted to talk about is how we view where we are in the context of history, right? So it was 1974 when women were given the right to open up a bank account in these here United States of America without a male relative or without a husband. So it depends on how you want to see that, right? Like we could say, whoa, 1974. Let me put that in the context of my own life. My mother was 25 years old at that time, right? So an adult. So how do we see this? Do we celebrate where we've come from 1974 to now, where we have women who clearly can be owners of their own property and their own bank accounts and who are making money through crypto and empowering themselves and gaining financial freedom in that way? Do we want to celebrate how far we've come? Or do we want to just take a moment, like Rachel said, and look at that and say, that wasn't really like a long time ago, like in the context of things, right? And so pretending that that wasn't the case is also doing us a disservice. Or can we find an in between where we acknowledge both, where we say, damn, we've come so far, but actually that really wasn't a long time ago. And because that wasn't that long of a time ago, just by its essence, there's still going to be echoes of that in our society, right? And so let's acknowledge both. Let's celebrate where we've come, and let's also realize that there are still challenges because that wasn't that long of a time ago. And so, I love the fact that there are women in crypto, that there are women who have created successful projects, who are adding value to this ecosystem on a daily basis. And what I want to sort of lean into is this thought that I have, which is how women lead and why it's so important for women to be leaders in this space because of the very nature of how women lead when we compare it to men. And this is a generalization, of course, but there is natural leadership skills that come with being a woman in this world, right? Like we're capable of multitasking. We run our households while oftentimes holding employment. we as matriarchs have to make sure that a lot of people are good, right? Like we have a running list of like all of the members of our family that we check on and say, okay, did so and so get this done, that done? So I just think that women are just naturally um, capable of being excellent leaders. The thing about that is how it presents, right? So I'm soft spoken, right? And I consider myself an effective leader, but I understand how that can be received in this world. People can look at that and think that because I'm a 5'4" Latina who tends to speak softly, that somehow I'm not effective, or that somehow I'm not as strong as a male counterpart. And that's just not the case. And so I think where our work lies as a collective, right, um, is celebrating how women can be leaders and what that looks like, and understanding those differences between male and females, and rewriting the narratives both amongst women, but also with the help of our male counterparts, that no, actually, it's just a different font. It's just a different presentation of what leadership looks like. And actually, there's so much strength in bringing women into the room, because women lead through collaboration and through community. Women lead through diplomacy. Women lead through their strengths. These are strengths, they're not weaknesses, actually. And so I have experienced that, and I'll give you my quick story. When I came into the space really in the role of support for Carlos. Carlos doesn't really do the marketing thing well. Like, he can paint his tushy off. He's a fantastic artist, but he really doesn't do that well. I can communicate well. Also, another soft skill that women tend to have. Granted, these are all generalizations, but I helped him with marketing. And then I became a collector in the space, and I loved being able to collect from women artists. It was fantastic. I loved the relationships that I created with women artists. And I felt like that was my role at the time. And I would attend spaces, but I would attend spaces more so as a listener. And I didn't really feel comfortable grabbing the mic. I didn't want to speak. And then I started joining some of my male friends' spaces. Sarkis was one of the very first, then Giancarlo. And they really saw something in me. And it was because they kept telling me, you're a good speaker. Like, just keep talking, or consider leaning into the idea of being a host and not a co host, like one time. That helped me push through this perceived notion or thing that I had in my head, that being bold was unladylike. And Rachel did speak to this, and it is societal programming, right? So it was them recognizing my natural sort of divine role as a woman who has leadership skills, and encouraging me to lean into that I started speaking more in spaces, and now I'm a host, and now I'm a public speaker, and now all of these things. And so I'm not taking away from my own work, right, and my own capacities, but it was male counterparts that held that space for me and were encouraging, that got me to this point where now I am sort of, I mean, I'm one of the co-founders, but I'm kind of the de facto leader of One Love. And the way that I lead is very much like a mom. It's very much like a woman, right? I'm always making sure that my people are good, that my family is fed, that we're getting the opportunities, that we're being seen and showcased in the places and spaces that those artists deserve. And so women play a fucking huge role in the shaping of this landscape. And so I'll wrap it up with this, which is that also, I get it, when I see girls who sort of put themselves out there more for the attention, it concerns me, because um, I don't have an issue actually with nudity. I'll be very honest with you. I feel like nudity is an art form. It's a celebration of the human form. I like that. I think where my concern lies is the feedback loop. If all you're being told constantly is that your value is greater because you are exhibiting yourself more, it's just not a healthy kind of thing. And I don't think it's a healthy thing for artists in general to rely too heavily on any feedback loop, because you're creating for you, you're creating from a place of your experience, and sometimes letting the feedback of others, whether it has to do with the sexuality component or even a style of art, I think is not the best thing to do to maintain your authenticity as an artist. And so, yeah, that is concerning in the capacity that I don't think that it's healthy, but I also recognize that there is a lot of beauty in the artistry, right? And if done with that intention, then that should be celebrated and accepted in society as an artistic form. And that males play a role in that too, just like how males play a role in positively um, holding space so that women can show up more. Males play a role in what they consume and what they celebrate and what it is that they like. And so I think that's a conversation that we can be having with our sons, with our brothers, and our friends, and just say, hey, I get it. Like, obviously, she's highly attractive, but just pause for a second and think of what it is that you're doing. And then for women, I think it's important that if you do want to lean into that sort of behavior online, then don't complain, sis. You know, that's all. Like, don't don't turn around and say you're being objectified if that's the role that you are willingly choosing and molding your public persona under. And so I know I said a lot there, but I hope I was able to relay those points. And mad love to all the people in the space, especially the women that I see here. I see so many amazing ladies. So yeah, I'll end with that. Thank you so much for the time to speak, Vasia.
No, Jennifer, that was perfect. Thank you for sharing and even getting into your story. A lot of what you said resonated. I actually have a very similar story where I was introduced to Web3 because of a man. King of Midtown was my business partner, and it was, I think, very much so that balance and like that team effort of definitely, like he had his strengths and also coming more from that masculine energy, and I had mine as more of that feminine energy, and it is what made us a great team and a good balance. And there were, just like your story, men along my journey that also kind of encouraged me to not be so shy and slowly step into that more leadership position. So shout out to all of those guys that have encouraged me along the way as well. I definitely wouldn't have had the courage to step into my power and kind of more into that leadership role and spotlight. So I definitely appreciate, like you mentioned, all the men that continue to encourage females in this space, and what you're doing also, Jennifer. You're leading by example, and seeing that was so clear in Miami, seeing what you guys put together, and seeing you present during the events, and just what you were building. You could tell that you've just been inspiring a lot of people. So I think that's a huge thing to highlight as well. Like, we need to just lead by example, many of us, and also celebrate and support the females that we think are doing it right. And then you brought up nudity and in general, like nude art, which is something I had on the agenda today because I think it's definitely important to discuss. I think, like you said, the female body is beautiful. Like, it can be so empowering, so sexy, and there's photographers that come to mind immediately. I think of Ayla Musa and Pauline as just examples of just tasteful and beautiful, and using nudity in the female body as art. That being said, there's definitely people that, especially in 2021, I can't really think of anyone off the top of my head more recently, but as we were kind of starting, there was a lot of people that were honestly just minting their OnlyFans pictures. Like, that's literally what it looked like. And we can't pretend that these are the same. Like, there's definitely a beauty in the art form. So I'm glad you mentioned it. And I also love the fact that you talk about men's role in the consumption, in the collecting. And I definitely think that, mentioning in those situations where it's like, a lot of you guys have daughters too, to be honest with you. So pointing it out, and I think having that larger conversation, like, I think it's important, even though it can get uncomfortable. So thank you again, Jennifer. I think you brought up a lot of great points. Milton, because again, you're the co-host, you are favorable. So go ahead. I see your hand up, and then we could swing it around the room.
I just want to say to Jennifer, wow, you've come a long way. I didn't realize that was your origin story, coming in as a supporting role, but You would not know that today because, girl, you are rocking the mic, and not to mention 1,000 great events at once. Somehow, you mentioned multitasking. That's something that actually men fall short on. It's a proven scientific fact. And if Web3 is not about multitasking, I don't know what is. So I love the take that you had there, and especially such a balanced take too. I just wanted to go back to talking about your 1974 example. It's really, really tough, especially when we in Web3 are definitely people who strive for greatness. When we're looking ahead, if you were in the Hawaiian Islands, there's a little anecdote. If you're paddling a boat from the Hawaiian Island one to the next, you're looking ahead and you're looking out at the next island, your destination, and it can look so far away on the horizon. But very often, very infrequently, do we actually look back and say, wow, look how far we've actually come. So I thought that was a great example of having a balanced take. And by the way, I have to chide you a little bit. We don't do balanced takes here. We're looking for clickbait. We want fighting. We want we want people to be rude and on one side only. We don't do nuance in Web3, but I think that was a great take. And lastly, I would just say you coined a great term, which was leading through a different font. So you mentioned a different font. I thought that was just a great one-liner on how you could see female energy coming into the space and leading maybe a different way, but it's simply a different font. It's the same message at the end of the day. So I just want to give you many, many flowers to to your speech there. I thought that was excellent. I took a lot of notes. So thank you so much. So I see more hands, which is good. We've always got hands. Rachel is coming back to say hello. Rachel, thank you again for posting your boobies and ass tweet. I do like that. The humor is not lost on me. And also, I see that Diamond joined us. I invited Diamond, and she threw some of the events that we were just giving flowers to in the beginning of the show. So I can't wait to have her up soon as well. But yeah, Rachel, since you were polite enough to raise your hand, I wanted to give the mic back to you. Hey, Rachel.
Wait, I think Violet and Sandy had their hands up before me.
You're
So
such a
I can go.
sweetheart, Rachel. Thank you. I was going to say, what the hell is Milton doing?
Oh, thank you. Thanks for the correction. This is where women are better than men. A man would have just grabbed the mic. Thank you for
Yes.
being so diplomatic, Rachel. Yes, I believe you're correct. Sandy was definitely first.
Sandy, we'll give you the
hello.
mic. Thank you for joining.
Wait for Rachel to stand up for women. Just kidding.
Milton, is it
Hi.
just me? I can't hear Sandy. I don't know if it's...
I can hear her. Actually,
I can't hear
Oh,
Sandy,
Sandy.
maybe just
Vasia.
and come back up.
Okay, I'm gonna get out and I'm gonna come back in because I definitely uh would want Vasia to hear this. So I'll
Oh
be
my goodness,
back.
I'm
I'll
so
be
sorry,
back.
Sandy. Do you mind jumping down and coming back in? Only because I can't do so because I'm the host and it would rug everyone. I'm so sorry. Okay, while we wait for Sandy to rejoin, Violet, I think you were next, so we'll give you back the mic.
Sure. There are so many great points made today. Girls, like kudos to you. What I wanted to say is just that I came with that kind of point of everything that like to make it easier for women to join and that women like it easier. I'm talking about like general public. I'm not talking about women who are already here and not taking away your flowers here, but I'm talking about like average women that I speak to, like from the world of what do you call it, normies, that are basically cautious, less risky. They are not as forward to take risks, and they're like, oh, this is, they read a lot about NFTs and the Web3 and how many scams. And like, let's acknowledge one thing. We might be great leaders. We might have a very particular set of skills, like in Taken. We are like a special type of Liam Neeson. But in general, we are less prone to taking risks. So maybe when the space, because I'm talking about like mass adoption and like grand entry by thousands of women. And let's acknowledge those little things. And women do not take risks as willingly as men do. And to be honest, that I listen to every single woman, and you've got so many different experiences and different approaches to the topic. And there are so many different expectations because as somebody mentioned, Jennifer, yeah, mentioned that not so long ago, we were not allowed to open our bank accounts, and suddenly we've got access to crypto. we can, like you had, a woman running for the president. So there are loads of women leaders in politics around the world. Mexico has a female president, so there is not an issue with this, but there is like a conflicting uh, kind of expectations, because the older generation has different expectations to women than to modern one. Young kids are growing up with wrong influencer kind of role models presented to them, and there is like contorting of our perception of who we are or who we should be. Like, I don't know, like, sorry for a plug-in, but my newest series of paintings talks exactly about that. It's called Sugar Coated, and I'm not soft spoken and I'm not very good communicator, so I fall short with these skills as a woman. But what I do, I think well, is communicate through my art. And I created a series of paintings that represent exactly that as a springboard for conversations. All my sugar coated relate to this online and those false narratives, all those lies we're being fed, or all those expectations that we are trying to fulfill. Maybe the best way to approach what we want to be and how we want to be seen is by like looking at ourselves and like, who do we need that validation from? Do we need it from thousands of people in our phones that we don't know, we don't connect, or we need it from ourselves, our partners, our family, our closest friends who have our best in like at heart? Who do we need validation from? Who is the first person that you should feel validated by? It's you. So even if it doesn't go along with those narratives by the masses, just look what you want to do and look at yourself from like outside of yourself. Do you respect yourself for what you do and how you present yourself and how you go forward with anything you do? Like, I feel that the validation that we are seeking leads to that horrible attention seeking that makes certain women act in a way that is shameful. And yeah, once you put it online, it's forever. And even if you try to erase it, there is a print, some form of a print of it. And if you achieve something in the future, there will be trolls that will dig it up. So like, let's look at ourselves without all those influences and those trends and those expectations that are coming from external forces that we don't even know. These are just the numbers and names and avatars in our phone. Like, let's look at ourselves, our closest people to us that have our best at heart, and let's kind of align like with something good and present ourselves in a respectable way. Thank you.
Violet, I'm glad you brought it up because I had it as well on the agenda and I wanted to talk about your series. It's pinned up top for those that are not familiar. There's a bunch of paintings in the collection. I definitely recommend checking out Violet's website where she has everything kind of listed. And there's a lot of literature that you pair with the paintings because you really have a story to tell and you're opening up a conversation just like we are today. And I give you so much credit for it because there's, of course, art and the visual aspect is important, but more, what else can we do there? And you're posing such interesting questions and bringing to light conversations that need to be happening today in our current world. And there's a lot of things going on internationally right now that you're bringing attention to through your artwork. So I really appreciate that from you as an artist in general. And again, you're not shy to pose some of these questions. I love what you mentioned where it comes from within. And you also touch upon the importance of this, the digital age that we live in. It's online forever. Like, yeah, you could delete it, sweetie, but it's out there. And it comes back to like that reputation. And in a world where people can say things and they might not even be true, but you know what? It's out there. People might believe it and your reputation is tainted. Like, money comes and goes. You might have it today and not have it tomorrow or the reverse, but your reputation will forever follow you. So I think it's extremely important to instill that. I mean, maybe it was because I came from a very traditional Greek household, but that was something my father drilled in us since we were kids. And unfortunately, I do think that like modern society doesn't emphasize that enough. Like we kind of need to have these conversations, especially with younger women and females, and that reputation I think is extremely important, especially in Web3 where it's a very small space and people's attention spans is short, but stuff like that I think follows you. So I love everything that you mentioned. And again, I'm just going to encourage everyone to go check out Violet's collection. Violet, if there's any specific to tweets or threads that you've posted from your Sugar Coated series that you maybe want to put as well in the comments so that people can scroll through once we're done with the space and they can reference, I would love to also see it there.
Sure, I'll do that. And also, quick add-on that also perception of ourselves and the respect and the opinion on all of that changes with every decade. You will think very differently about all of that when you're in your 20s. You will think even more differently when you're in your 30s, 40s, and so on. I'm now turning exactly mid 40s. So I look back at myself when I was 20 and all I am is grateful that internet wasn't such a big thing back then, because holy shit, that would come back to haunt me. Now I'm a prudish old woman that can preach to the young lassies all around the world. But I swear to God, like, we all go through monkey stupid periods, and unfortunately now it gets documented every step of the way. So I really sympathize with the younger generation because they can't get away from that, and it's much harder. Like in the 90s it was easy to be stupid and not documented.
I appreciate the honesty, Violet. I love that. And you're very right. Yeah, absolutely. Now you never know when you're being recorded. Let's put it that way. So, okay. I love all the things you mentioned. I think if Sandy is back, Sandy, do you want to give it a go? Maybe I can hear you now. Let's see if I can.
Yes, take two. Can you hear me now?
Milton, is it just me?
Oh, darn. Yeah, no,
Oh, darn.
I hear her, but
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Sandy, I don't want to take it away from you. I'm going to let you go ahead. Speak to the room. Milton, I'm going to let you
Okay.
respond and let me know when Sandy's done because I definitely want to give you the mic. You're an amazing inspiration for a lot of people in this space. So kick it off. Speak to
Oh,
the room.
goodness. Can you hear me? I'm like, who can hear me? That is such a bummer about Vasia not being able to hear me, but I certainly appreciate her giving me the mic here. So I'll just for those of you that don't know me, I'll briefly introduce myself. I'm a career coach and consultant. I am a higher education leader turned Web3 and success strategist. I'm such a proud community builder, Hispanic and Latino advocate, and motivational speaker. Really, for me, I'm so passionate of connecting others, especially first gen and immigrants like me and women of color with opportunities that can change their lives. I am super, super proud to be the founder of Women of Web3, where I have the privilege to uplift women and underrepresented communities. Super happy that we've accomplished so much. And there's three things that I want to talk to you about today, and that is the power of women in Web3 and why we are called Women of Web3. So, with women are we're significantly underrepresented in the tech sector. It's 20% of women globally working in technology, just 13 involved in blockchain and crypto sectors. And then for women of color, it's even more marginalized. We only make up 2% of the tech workforce. So I'm very proud to be part of that 2%. And so with the Web3 industry growing at an annual rate of 43.7%, it is crucial that we're here. It's crucial for us to exist. And when I see posts and I see women say, "Oh, why drop the women in leader or drop the women in Web3?" And it's like, you can't do that. Like, there's a reason why we are women of Web3. We should never diminish the fact that there's a need for us to be here and to be represented, because then it would mean that we would be diminishing all those statistics that I just shared with you. And we can't do that. We need to be seen, we need to represent, we need to be able to acknowledge that there's a gap. and that there's a need for gender equality. And so that's one thing that I wanted to mention. And along with that, I wanted to express how grateful I am for spaces like this. So Vasia, she's very close to my heart. Jen here and Diamond on the stage and Tony, who are not here, they joined forces with me to do The Future is Female, Women of Web3 Takeover in Miami, where we increased visibility for our featured speakers that spoke with Women of Web3 at our Science Summit, not only this year, but last year. We have the privilege of launching a book, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But that's the power of community, and that's the power of being knowledgeable of the real reason why it's important to support women. So we will always be called Women of Web3, and we will always be so forever proud of the work that we do. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is network. So when I started in Web3, I started I bought my first NFT when I left ASU. I was there for about 2 decades in various leadership positions. And so I'm an educated Latina. I'm very tech savvy. I led centers of technology for women of color. And I worked as the 50th president for ASU for the Chicano Latino faculty and staff. I was chair for the Commission of Women on Campus for twice in over 10 years. And so it's just crazy to me when coming to Web3 and seeing all of the different gaps for women to be successful in this space. And long story short, with this topic, with this thing that I want to leave you with, is that we have strategic networks and relationships that we cultivate that really follow us through our career and all the industries that we work, and sometimes that may not be seen. So in one of the global projects that I worked with, one of the leaders mentioned um, that, Sandy, you're just building your following. You don't even have like 1,000 followers, and this is when I was trying to negotiate my salary. And I stopped them right then and there because for me, they only saw my Twitter side. They only saw my Twitter side. They didn't see my Instagram following. They didn't see my LinkedIn following, who, by the way, I strategically cultivate those relationships. So more than likely, I know when and where I met you um, in those platforms. So they didn't know the behind the scenes. They didn't have my resume. They didn't know, my whole trajectory at ASU, my huge CrossFit family that I have, my Arizona connections, how globally I'm connected in Web3. They don't see that I'm a board member for United Latinas and Young and Empowered. And so what I told them is, I'm here to be of influence. I'm not here to be an influencer. And then I shared all of that with them. And so that's my second point, is that your network is your most powerful force, and even if other people don't see it, there's a lot behind you. So always be proud of that, and don't let anyone diminish how many followers you have or whatever, because let me tell you, I get more work done with good people. I'm a strong believer that good people always find good people to do good, and the people that I have done so much good with have, like, they don't have such a following. They don't have, I mean, some do, but most of them don't, because those are the doers, and you want to align yourself with people that have good values and people that get things done. My last point is, there is a lot of challenges in Web3, and I write about it in our book. So again, very proud to have done our book launch in Miami. Our book is available on Amazon. It's Women in the Web3 Space, Inclusive Futures. So it's the 2024 edition, because there will be a next book next year. But for Women of Web3, the past 2 years, like I mentioned, we've championed gender equality. We feature women at the United Nations Science Summit. So there's 2 cohorts. So we featured over 34 women already. And the reason why I did that is because they're elevated. As soon as you say they're a UN speaker, these women are elevated and they deserve to be recognized. Their stories and the impact that they have made in this digital landscape deserves recognition. It deserves to be heard and seen. The other reason why I move forward in the book project is because, Cindy Kuhn, our UN liaison, and I had a conversation about, why do men get more speaking engagements? Why are there some panels that are full of men and there's very little women? And the reason is, especially in academia, is that they are published authors. And so our UN liaison launched her own publishing company, Turkey Hill, and she presented the idea of the book, and we jumped on it because once you're an author, it gives you an additional layer of credibility. So we're so proud at Women of Web3, not only to build a community with powerful trailblazers, but we get to have them speak at the UN. We give them a sense of belonging, and we're making them authors. So all of the women that we have featured at the UN have the opportunity to take advantage of these opportunities. And so it's so important for us to be able to be here and to tell our stories, because like I said, there's challenges. For me personally, there's microaggressions. I told you about negotiating my salary and the pushback I got because I didn't have a huge following. There's some, even building our brands, it requires a significant investment in terms of time and resources. We don't get paid sometimes for the work that we're doing. And then as we're trying to build our name, or organizations like Women of Web3, we have to put in a lot of work and sacrifice so much just to build, just to put yourself out there. And so the biggest thing for me, because believe me, I've cried, I've prayed, I've had people who have paid for my lodging just to make it to a conference so that I can keep growing. And I'm forever grateful for them. I'm forever grateful for those that speak my name in rooms of opportunity. But the biggest thing is that I have to remind myself of the bigger picture. So despite, all my efforts, like, I had to remember that it's bigger than me. I have to remember that together we can leave a mark and inspire young girls all over the world, so that there's more women of color in this space, so that there's more women learning about STEM. We offer scholarships through Women of Web3. So whether you buy our NFT, whether you buy our book, we always turn around to give back. And with the book, I'll post the links here if my girls haven't already. Um, we give back to scholarships, and we're going to give back to each of the women that are featured in the book, because they need professional development. They need to be able to go to a conference of their choosing. They need to be able to continue being embedded in the ecosystem in order for them to thrive. So those are my 3 points. One, like I said, there's much more to my story and the hardships that we go through. But I'm proud to wear my pantsuit when I go vote. I mean, it's so amazing. Like Jen, you touched on this. It's like we have to acknowledge the hard work that other women have done for us. That, being able to buy a house, being able to vote. So, I'm always super grateful for Susan B. Anthony, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, and Alice Paul, because if there wasn't other women standing up for us, whether it's in Web3 or with our civic rights, we would be way even farther where we are right now. But there's more work to be done. So I'm so grateful. I know Vasia can't hear this. I know she'll replay it. But thank you, HardArt, for having us and for opening this platform. I'm forever grateful, and I'm happy to connect with anyone here. And I'm just proud and privileged and so blessed to be building with all of you here. So thank you.
Thanks, Sandy. Thanks for being such a great voice for the space, not just as a woman, but as a leader and as somebody who's taken initiative to do great things and build such a great following, not just to be followed, but to build networks in multiple venues. I like how you touched upon the 3 points there, one of those being networking. And I think your quote of the day is definitely to be of influence, not an influencer. I really, really love that one. I think you touched on a lot of great points. The stats are what they are, and we can't change that. What you can change is being a force for positive impact, like you've mentioned. And I like the idea of not dropping the women. I think Violet's got a good point of not labeling everything woman. A woman created this. This was woman done. This is bravo to you for being a woman and having made this more, but more of acknowledging the stats are what they are. That's such a small percentage. I didn't know, especially 2% of women of color are involved in blockchain, for example. So yeah, I think the fact that you're bringing attention to that, it's not patronizing. It's more just showing the statistics for what they are, which are lagging far behind. And Vasia touched on it in the beginning, but this industry, in theory, could be somewhere to have even chances at everything. This could be a place where those barriers could be broken down. There are still a lot of anonymous artists, so curious to think about that for a second too. Rachel mentioned her alter ego is Ray, so that's a really interesting dynamic to consider. But yeah, I think acknowledging the challenges that still exist is big. So you touched on that, Sandy. Why do people get more speaking engagements being published? So instant credibility. I like the fact that you're pushing towards having more women published so that they get those speaking engagements. And then, especially once you're using your position of power, which you've now worked so hard for, and you have a stand somewhere, you have influence. You're not an influencer, but you are somewhat of influence. Now you're able to give back to scholarships, for example, to where more women can participate, more women can be seen, be heard, and get the recognition that they deserve. So a lot of great points you touched on. Like Jennifer, I took a full page of notes. So hopefully we can highlight some of those in Vasia's great recaps that she does on the threads. I'll be sharing those notes with her. Unfortunately, she couldn't hear, I'm afraid, but I think she can hear me at least. So I did want to pass the mic over to somebody that you mentioned and just gave some flowers to, Sandy, which is Diamond. Diamond's on the stage. And I did quickly want to acknowledge that I do see more people on the stage. So I do know that Maria, that TP, and that Catalina are on stage, and we will definitely get to you shortly. But I did want to pass the mic next to Diamond, who, like I said, just got some flowers from Sandy. They worked together on some of the great events that we just saw at Art Basel 24. So Diamond, welcome to the stage. How are you?
Peace. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Oh, great. I'm mobile right now, but yeah, thanks for inviting me to come in and tap in with the other women who make Web3 great. Sandy, Jen, they really definitely showed out for Art Basel, but I've been a woman in tech, my whole career, and even before that as a student. Working on the board with Society of Women Engineers, National Society of Black Engineers, being, I guess I would say, I don't like saying minority, I say underrepresented or marginalized community, but, being in that pocket in the tech space, you're constantly, fighting imposter syndrome and constantly, validating your space and creating space to have your opinions and show up and really contribute. And I think that's how we really move past the influencer culture to create something that's sustainable and that has a strong foundation, is bringing our skill sets, that we have from our other industries, and really not just speaking, but like using those skill sets, transferring them, beyond just thought leadership. For example, I come from display manufacturing. Before that was payments at Visa, and working in their data centers, but at Microsoft, building out the factories, going overseas in the supply chain, I gave me a whole perspective on how the world really works, how products are really made, how things get done. And, when I came into Web3, thankfully, shout out to Tony, who's not here, but he onboarded me, him and his business partner, into this space. Officially onboarded me, it was clear. It was like, okay, infrastructure, that's what's missing here, right? Or there's these different decentralized infrastructure ecosystems being built, but they don't have pipelines connecting each other. And then there were still very glaring gaps, like, okay, we're talking about owning your own money, but most of the exchanges don't even own like their own money, right? Like on and off ramps, right? Digital asset focused banking, digital asset enabled hardware that allows, people to go spend very easily. All of these things are very slow to permeate the space. And I still now, 3 years later, having been in this space, I'm still pushing the hardware talk, and I'm so grateful One Love was able to patron the display gallery in at the Gates Hotel, supporting Goons World, supporting all of us, and bringing a really great activation and incredible artists from around the world to showcase, and a place that's getting multicultural traffic, right? Visitors from all across the world. I mean, that's beautiful. That's the power of art and technology bringing people together, seeing people in awe and recording. Like, it makes it all worth it. So I would just encourage, definitely tap in with myself if you want to, get more of the technical. My company, NFTCLT, we focus on supporting creators, artists, organizations, and filling those gaps, creating those bridges to implement a blockchain infrastructure within their existing ecosystems. But follow me, tap in. We host events where we support communities across the world all throughout the year, and we're really focused on making sure that next generation, that us women who are here speaking, are actually on campuses, also in community hubs in the cities that we go to, speaking to the next generation, because they're the ones who are going to take this farther, right? They're accustomed to digital assets in their gaming worlds and all of these things. So helping them understand how they real life prepare, use those skills that they've been building as kids for this, the new dawn of, the digital age, and what we're building for them, that's going to be critical, right? That we're empowering them with the tools rather than, letting these tools kind of get out of hand, which is a very real possibility when there's not diverse voices, when there's not women in the room representing, bringing balanced perspectives to how we build core technology, that everyone, we know, governments, major institutions all have an eye on adopting. It's just a matter of how and when, and if we can get in early to influence that adoption, that's how we move from this bullshit influencer culture to building things that are real. And I know, like Ritzy, they were just in DC, I'm part of Women of Web3 lobbying. We go out there as well. We have students on the campus of Howard, Morgan State, getting their ear before they, become, adults and making these decisions as well. So yeah, I appreciate the time. I'm happy to join in and continue to move the culture forward and make a better Web3 culture. That's the biggest thing we can do right now, is change the narrative. Publish as much as you can, articles, PR, tweets, all of the things, decentralized social media that show how we can use this space for good, and highlight the women and the marginalized, underrepresented folks who are doing really cool things to push culture forward.
Milton, can you guys hear me okay? I just want to make sure. Okay, great. I don't know why I got rugged, Sandy. I'm so sorry I didn't hear any of that. I saw a bunch of emojis being thrown up, so I'm sure it was all great. Milton, I wasn't able to hear you either, but I did hear Diamond, and I'm really happy I did, because she shared a little bit about her background, which honestly I wasn't familiar with. But you're absolutely right, girl. It's about using our backgrounds, using our diverse backgrounds. It's really interesting seeing everyone's different journeys to get to Web3, but it's about using those as a strength and really building, like you mentioned, the infrastructure and building the space in the right direction. And I loved getting the chance to meet you in Miami, because it's extremely obvious how welcoming your energy is, how just, in general, you just mentioned now people reaching out and DMing and starting a conversation. I think it's all about that, and seeing, again, people like you taking these leadership roles and leading by example. And I think it's just going to continue to build that momentum. And actually, I'm going to make a very quick reference to like the New York City subway. There was like a weird study done essentially that, all these crazy things happen in the New York subway and everyone just whips out their phones and starts recording. But it takes one person to actually choose to step in and help and do something. And all of a sudden, everyone is stepping in, trying to do something. So it's really about sparking that initial, igniting that initial flame. And then that's where the momentum builds. So it's really nice getting to see people like you taking those initiatives and continuing to advocate. And I think it's just a matter of, again, building that up and building that momentum. I do want to really quickly swing the mic to Rachel Wood, because she has taken the time. It's, I think, 3 a.m. where she is right now. So I want to give her a second to speak. And then I also know that the stage is full and we have a couple more people requesting. So I'll rotate a few people up. So thank you guys for patiently waiting. Rachel, go ahead. Mic is yours.
Thanks so much. And yes, once I've finished speaking, I'll be real quick. I'll drop down just to let more people up. One, I just want to say, wow, such a great space. And can we just applaud all of the ladies here on stage and listening, like, truly, honestly, this is really beautiful. And I know, like, we're in an art bubble of just like leaders and creators and, innovators. So we're not really reflective of the whole crypto world. But I just want to say, I really love our corner of the sky that we are carving, whether we feel like it or not, where we are inspiring and we are, making space for something really wonderful to happen. Um, but Sandy, amazing points, and Diamond, also really amazing. I guess I want to just lead really quickly. I studied medical anthropology in college because I was a med student. And then I also studied and graduated with a bachelor's in women, gender, and sexuality studies. And throwing it back to our earlier discussion point, Jen brought it up as well as Violet, and Laurel's post that you pinned at the top of the space. I just want to say that I don't fully agree with Laurel's post saying that women now have so many more career and job options. And I say this because we have made progress, but like Jen said, it's all fairly recent. And even though we do have access to education, finances, opportunities, and careers that didn't exist before, women still had education, some financial control, as well as opportunities, maybe not in the opportunities that we as modern women think are opportunities, but they did have them and they did have female spaces. Um, and I just wanted to say that this points more to humans will be humans no matter what opportunities open up. Just look at Web3. The technologies has changed dramatically, but people have remained the same. We are trying to make the new tech do the same things we have always done. And whether it's tech or laws or, whatever, society will always try to find this same. And I think all of us on stage are really wonderful leaders in this regard because we don't want the same. We don't want to be the same as males. We want equity. And for those who don't know what equity means the quality of being fair and impartial. So as we're creating space, as we continue to show up for ourselves as well as other women like us and also the younger generation, we just need to repeat ourselves why we're here and show up for that fair and impartial, space and make it for ourselves. I think I said this before. No one else is going to give us this fair and just world. And we should not be waiting for it to happen. We just need to claim it because we can and we should as women. So thank you for the space. And I enjoy listening to everyone else and sending out all the hearts. All the hearts. Thank you, Vasia and Milt.
Thank you, Rachel. It's always a pleasure having you on stage. Yeah, I think the only thing I want to comment back, and I don't know if maybe I misunderstood, but I think you mentioned Laura's original tweet and her just bringing it back to like, females back in the day that fought for rights and now that women have more of a, I guess, equal chance. I know you mentioned timeline, and I think the one thing that more recently kind of came up in my personal life where I got to spend more time, I've been spending more time with my grandmother and hearing some of her stories and coming from a traditional kind of Greek background and seeing how like there weren't those opportunities. And it was the very traditional housewife slash whatever my grandfather said, and seeing in a generation, in two generations, how much has changed where I'm able to completely, have a life that they would have never imagined. So I think it kind of goes back to, I guess I just wanted you to clarify on that part, Rachel. I know your hand just went up again. Yeah, just go over that part one more time for me.
Yeah, so really quick. So I know we have made progress within the past several decades, and we've seen it within our mothers and our grandmothers and even in our own lives. But when we think about things, I mean, humans have been existing for hundreds of thousands of years. And when we're saying, oh, we've made progress, so we now have so much more career and job options, I mean, I feel like people are, one, comparing more career and job options to women back in antiquity versus women back like 50 years ago. And then they're also just kind of forgetting that despite having thousands of years where we could have equity, where we could have more equality, where we could have more career and job options, that within even the past 100 years, this is not enough for us to just be patiently waiting and saying that we now have opportunities, things should be the same. And this is where I get frustration mostly, because I feel that we do have more opportunities and education and, laws assisting us and not oppressing us. But the lack of oppression doesn't mean we're suddenly like able to soar, because there's so many other things that are on top of our shoulders. And time-wise, I think we need to really be realistic in, okay, well, we've had hundreds of years to make things better, and they haven't been. They've only moved the needle a tiny bit forward. I think we really need to be more aggressive and outspoken against, oh, well, we're suddenly better off than we were. We need to be like, well, we're not there yet.
Okay, I get what I think Laura's original tweet kind of referenced, and it's weird because I saw something literally yesterday on Instagram. It was essentially saying like how some females make like 100,000 a day on OnlyFans, or millions of dollars on OnlyFans a year, and it's like, I guess Laura's original, I think, tweet was just kind of referencing a bit more of that, of like not being, I don't want to call it a sellout, but not necessarily like there's options and that we don't have to resort to that type of means. Okay, I know that there's a few hands up. I have a feeling Violet has something to respond to, so I'm going to hand her the mic next, and then we'll go around the stage.
Thank you. Like, just to make clear, like, I'm a woman. Like, this is like how I was born, but I don't feel women should agree on everything. Like, men don't agree on everything. So I'm not going to speak on behalf of women, and I would never dare to do that, because who the hell made me the spokesperson for women? And I want to clarify one thing that I picked up from Rachel. I respectfully disagree on equity. I want equality. I want to have opportunities, because if I have an opportunity and I'm competing with somebody, I'm going to work my arse off to be better than them. Equity eliminates that fire to work hard and to strive. It makes us lazy, and because we get extra boost for no reason whatsoever, because I don't think we need it. That's like, I'm coming from a very old school kind of thinking, very traditional. I want equal opportunity and equality in that sense. I don't want equity. I don't want a company that hires to have like the mandate to hire 50%. No, because then a lot of people that are far more deserving of the job are not going to get it, because I need to get that boost. I'm against that thinking, because that eliminates motivation, innovation, and basically genius. It stumps the genius, because those people are going to be knocked down despite trying their hardest. I feel that there are very capable men and very capable women, and they will rise to the top, and they will work their asses off to get there. So equality, yes. And those opportunities give us everything that we need. Just give me the opportunity and I'll get there. Don't give me equity. Don't bring me a booster seat. That's just my 5 cents.
Yeah, I'm curious what Rachel has to say in response, because I pretty much agree to the extent, give me the opportunity, but let me prove my value and worth. And I think especially when it comes to hiring and professionals in certain industries where people are forced to hire certain categories just to check off the list. But again, are they the most competent in that position? And yeah, I'm curious, Rachel, what your response to Violet might be.
Yeah, so I 100% agree with both of you, 100%. But I think this comes to a matter of like semantics and words, and just putting out there, English is my third language, so I might be like mixing things up. But in my head and my understanding, I was hearing that equality means like we're all given the same size box, like we're all given the doors open for us to run through. And like you said, anyone who has the fire will run through it with more might and driven, whatever. Equity, in my understanding, was that understanding that, okay, the door is open, But guess what? I'm starting from 20 meters away while someone else is starting 5 meters away. And equity kind of brings us to the same starting point to run through the same door. So that's where my understanding of equity is, where it's fair and impartial. It's not like, oh, well, you're female, so you should be placed further closer to the door because you're female. Like, no, that's not what equity is to me. Equity was, okay, we're all starting at the same starting point. Here's the finish line. Now go race for it. And that's where like equity and equality are kind of like fraternal, maternal twins, where like you kind of have to have both to balance each other. Like you said, you need to have that ability to prove your worth. Because I think, just handing things to everyone is not the way, definitely not like, but I also have to acknowledge that where I'm starting is very different where someone else is starting. And just because I might be starting further behind doesn't mean I can't go forward. And I think that starting behind shouldn't work against me. And that's where I think equity comes in. It's not working against me, but it's not pushing me forward
Do
either.
you think, Rachel,
But
this
it's a little
is
bit sorry, just to chime in very quickly, but it kind of is very generic speak because I feel that where we start also like if you want everybody to start at the same point, it's impossible.
I was
It's
going to
just
say
giving
that.
favoritism. It's giving favoritism. So if my parents work their fucking asses off, so my life is easier, should that be eliminated? Should that be erased? So why they did that? If like I'm not gonna have better opportunities. It's all connected. And I feel that like if you're good, you don't need that extra, few meters, added. You don't need it. You're gonna surpass people no matter what. Just open the door. I'm gonna sprint for that door. I disagree with the equity thing. Respectfully, of course.
I'm curious just to kind of chime in as well. Is it realistic? Like, is it realistic to say we're all going to start from the same line and all that? And I just feel like we're all dealt a certain hand, and it's a matter of using it to the best of our advantage. And of course, we could try to create opportunities for certain people. But again, is it realistic? And this is just across the board for anyone to kind of chime in. But okay, see hands up. Jennifer, we'll start with you, and then we'll make our way around.
Yeah, and I definitely want TP to chime into this conversation because she's just a wealth of knowledge, being somebody from the Indigenous community. So this is such a beautiful and nuanced conversation. I want to make 2 points. One goes back to something that Rachel said about humans humaning. And the truth is that the oldest profession is the oldest profession. Some of the most well-to-do women during like the Renaissance periods and certain periods of our older history were courtesans, and that is what they did because of the hands of the cards that perhaps they were dealt, and also because it afforded them a certain level of liberty. It gave them access to education, but nevertheless, they were companions to men. And this was the way that they were able to make money. And that's just a reality. So what we are seeing sort of like with this OnlyFans and influencer culture is just a modern version of something that has existed for a very, very, very long time. Does it add? Does it make it right? I mean, like, I'm not the person to really to say or to judge, but it's something that has existed for a long time, and we're just seeing this in a different modern approach, right? And like I go back to the intentionality of it. Like, does it add to you? Is it actually adding to society? That's a personal question, right? Me personally, that's not how I want to approach life as a woman, or the way that I want to represent myself and add value to the culture. But that's me, and I can't speak for other women's journeys. Now, um, as far as the equity versus equality conversation, it's really nuanced. And I can only share with you my experience. When I gave birth to my first child, Alexander, I worked for 15 years as a commission-based worker, right, in sales, online sales. I had my laptop in the room with me, so that as I was healing from a C-section, I was still answering calls. I was still taking chats because I was a 1099 worker and I didn't have the option of maternal leave. That's not something that is standardized across the board in the United States, right? Now, I'm a go-getter. My mother was an immigrant to this country who was a go-getter herself. So we've worked hard to get to where we are so that my children now have the particular set of circumstances that they do, right? But it is a reality, right? And also, there are things in this country that are baked into our history that are a reality. It is a reality that it was 1974 when women first had the ability to have bank accounts without a male relative. And we have come far, but we do have to acknowledge reality and truths. And one of those has to do with owning land in this country. Apart from that note about women and being able to access, independence financially, there are things in this country that perhaps other people who don't know about American history are unaware of. And one of them is redlining. Redlining was a practice that happened that literally changed up and demographic of whole neighborhoods in parts of the United States, but very easily observable in Long Island, New York, in parts of New York, like Brooklyn, South Brooklyn, where you go there and you have to kind of scratch your head and say, how is it possible that in the most diverse city in the world, there is a 90 to 98% white population in this particular neighborhood? Well, it's not a mystery. It's because systematically, for a long period of time, realtors would not sell homes to certain people, right? And if you have enough of that happen, and the way that generational wealth happens, right, it does reverb outward. It has a ripple effect into society, right? And so now, yes, there are a lot of opportunities. More people, more diversity are coming into certain neighborhoods, but those things happened. And so, how do you as a society create and hold space for the things to be undone and for the things to become more equitable? Part of that has to happen with first acknowledging that those things were a part of our history and they did happen and it wasn't so long ago. And so we work towards that. I don't want to be afforded any more privileges than the next person. I do not want to be hired instead of a man who is white, who is more eligible than I. However, at the same token, I do have to acknowledge the fact that I am coming up against a certain set of circumstances as a person of color, Latina, Indigenous, Black, in the United States, the child of a single mother who is an immigrant. These are just things that we have to acknowledge gracefully and as a community and collective work to remedy. I think all people should have paternal leave, not just me. Like my situation should not have happened, but Carlos shouldn't have had to go right back to work either and been robbed of the experiences of being next to his children for the first few, weeks of their lives. I think there are just certain things that we as a society can all stand to benefit from by first acknowledging them, recognizing that they need work, and then starting to create the policies and laws that help to further and push that needle, like Rachel was saying. So it's incredibly nuanced, equality, equity. That's just my experience. And I hope it helped sort of illuminate a little bit of how complicated and delicate it is. And I think ultimately we all have the exact same goal. So we just need to keep that in mind and yeah.
Jennifer, I definitely agree. Like, there's a lot of things that go way beyond this conversation, and it's just society that needs a restart in the infrastructure that's in place. And it's really sad to see, like you mentioned, the paternity leave, the maternity leave, all of these things where I mean, I can go on and on. I think it's just like we need a disruption, and we need to see the pendulum swing kind of the other way in terms of family units and just, I don't know, I think being more humane in terms of certain structures. But to go back to the original point you started off with, where back in the day they maybe didn't have options and females took on certain roles. I think that's what Laura was alluding to in her original tweet. I do think you're very politically correct in how you went about phrasing it, and you kind of said it's, no judgment and to each their own. I don't know. I think I'm going to take a little bit of an opposing stance where I would kind of speak up and say, listen, and I don't judge. And if you know me, you know this about me. I'm a very open and non-judgmental, and I don't think the world is black and white. I think there's a lot of gray, and there's obviously certain situations that are very unique. But I also don't think it's okay to normalize the behavior. And I am going to vocalize and kind of say, like, honestly, and I commented this, I think, on Laura's original thread, like, part of me is like, can we bring back shaming a little bit? And shaming goes from what people wear to how they behave and act. And I mean, we were in Miami, we were at Scope. Scope is like the higher end traditional art world, right? It's not like a Web3 degen kind of party. Like, it's a little more elevated, right? Let's put it that way. And there's this girl, attractive, whatever, walking around in like a G-string and like a completely see-through dress. And it's like, why are we seeing more and more of this? And again, if people don't kind of speak up and shame a little bit or make certain comments, like, it's going to become okay. And I'm not saying bully, like, I'm not, demean anyone, like, don't. But at the same time, like, she could have been a brain surgeon for all I knew, but she didn't come off as one. So I think it's important to also kind of, I don't know. I'm going to say it's like, I don't want to be politically quote unquote correct every single time. And I think it's okay to point things out and say, like, listen, it's not a good look, and people can choose to do whatever they want with that information and completely ignore me or not agree. And that's okay as well. But I think it's important to voice it and to say it. And so kind of going back again to the original reference, like, yeah, there was females back in the day that had to go to prostitution or brothels or mistresses and whatever. But you know what? There weren't many options back in the day. And now we do have options. And I think this is where Laura was like, it's really sad to see the fact that women in majority of situations around the world do have a bit more in terms of options and opportunities. And yet we're seeing them resort back to OnlyFans and this and that, and like needing the sugar daddy, etc. Like, it's just so sad. And the more that we don't speak out against it, the more normalized it becomes. Where, again, I guess just to bring it back to what I originally kicked off the conversation with, like, when I was teaching, like, you saw it. You saw younger girls, and they were just getting younger and younger each year, where they were just into their makeup and like even clothing. Like, I was shopping for my little cousins for the holidays and for their birthdays, and it's ludicrous how many children's clothing are now cropped or have cutouts or are just not inappropriate. And we're seeing little kids getting sexualized, and it's crazy. And again, if we don't as a society speak up against it, it's not going to change. And that's what scares me, I guess, and what brought back the wanting to have this conversation today. So I know I went on a bit of a tangent. I did see a lot of hands up. Okay, TP.
Can I speak just real
Yes,
quick?
because I know it's 3 a.m. by you, Rachel. Very quick. Go ahead.
Okay, really quick. Just to not beat a dead horse, and I respect both you and Violet's opinions, absolutely. But I just wanted to throw it back to Sandy and what she mentioned, because she mentioned a bunch of stats, and one of them was that women who have been published get more speaking opportunities, like their male counterparts who have also been published. And to me, that's equity. Equality would be just allowing women to apply for those speaker jobs. And like she said in her stat, they don't get them because they aren't starting from the same place. So equity would be getting women published to also compete for those speaking spots. So that's where I think equity and equality come into play together. And it's unlike you said, we can't all start from the same starting line, essentially, but we should still be striving for and acknowledging that women or people of color or whatever minority you are don't have the same opportunities for the same, don't have the same, I guess, starting point for those same opportunities. So yeah, that's just kind of like where my mind is at. Again, it is like 3 a.m. here. I've been up for like 4 days, so I might not be making sense, but I appreciate the the spiciness. I appreciate, hearing everyone's thoughts and where they're coming from and experiences. I think it's all valid. There is no one right answer. Absolutely not, because we all live in our own worlds. So yes, I still, all the hearts to everyone. And I'm going to go to sleep now.
I was
But
going to
thank
say,
you.
go get some sleep, girl. Thank you so much for joining, Rachel, and for joining the stage, and just keep doing what you're doing as a female artist in this space. And just as someone that's amazing and always has a lot of positive energy to go around, just, love having you around. So thank you again for also clarifying. And I know I couldn't hear Sandy when she was speaking, but I did pin up this morning. I actually received the book from Women of Web3. I have it pinned up top with the link, the Amazon link. So for those that maybe haven't had a chance to check it out, please make sure to do so. There's a bunch of inspirational women that published in this book, and I can't wait to go through it. I know TP has been patiently waiting, so I wanted to also throw the mic her way.
Hello. There's a lot going on in here. I see a lot of friends. I'll just do a quick intro for those who don't know me, because there's a lot of people I don't know as well. My name is Clarina. I am TP. Been in Web3 since February 2021, and created the NFT Creators Co-op in March 2021. I'm an environmental science graduate. I am a First Nation member, Bear Clan woman from the north of Canada, in the north of Canada, from a remote fly-in community. I don't identify as Indigenous. I'm a First Nation member. I know my clan. I know my people. My people know me, and there's a bit of a difference for me. And that's important, because in Canada we identify as either First Nation member within our language. And in the United States and Canada, there's almost, for your information, almost 600 different languages of First Nation communities. So there's a lot of learning that still needs to be had. We talk about representation and diversity and opportunity. I have no problem at all checking the box saying I am an Indigenous First Nation woman. It doesn't usually say First Nation. Actually, in Canada, it does. They do have a box where it'll say First Nation. I don't know what it does in the States or anywhere else, but I believe, as far as Indigenous, there's a lot of Indigenous identity around the world. I used to hold a space called TP Tuesdays, and it was, we're all Indigenous from somewhere. So as far as tech, I wanted to kind of jump in with the tech aspect. I'm Gen X, and I have been writing code since 1998, writing websites and doing digital art. I am currently on the standing offer of the Government of Canada as a tech consultant, and we do abuse of authority investigations, gender, racial harassment, sexual harassment investigations with many of the federal departments, such as Corrections, Canada Border Services, RCMP, different things like that. So this conversation is very interesting, as far as, again, to speak to the fact that we all do different things, and depending on how we're raised. I have been raised with a very traditional connection to my matriarchal line in our teachings, which kind of I follow. So when we talk about Indigenous or First Nations, a lot of that has to, for me, it ties back to how we interact with each other. We have TP teachings for me, and a lot of our language is based on teaching. So trying to kind of keep that all in mind when I'm operating or connecting with people has been really important. I ran a physical shop I set up in a physical space with my teepee outside. That's why I'm called teepee, by the way. Uh, and it was artist co-op. So I did a physical real space artist co-op, and then I did a Web3 one. The last event that I attended, I was a couple of weeks ago, and I was presenting blockchain technology to the technical college here in Manitoba. So for me, it's like, what are we doing and how are we doing it? Kind of really wanting to push some narratives of different communities, different languages, and different ways of building. And I just wanted to speak to that, because there's a lot of women that I see in this space, that even in this audience, that have been here alongside with me, that are true advocates, that aren't necessarily choosing to come up on stage all the time and do the reminder that they're, for me, to push through neurodivergence, different languages, and different cultural teachings about humility and pride. That it's been a challenge to really advocate for myself as an artist and also hold spaces for other artists around the world, multilingual communities. So, anyways, I just wanted to speak to that a little bit. And I really am happy to, I liked coming in. I thought, when are we all just going to say happy, pleasant things to each other? And I was like, wait a second. I can guarantee you in all the investigations that I do that we got a pretty good split of people that are, maybe need a check. We have a threshold, which is that it's, what is it? It's basically the concept of did the other people, did they have the same opportunities to know what their parameters were for respectful environments, right? So I think we all do. And how we communicate that, I think is wonderful, because we grow from having by sharing different ideas, and doing so in a respectful way is a wonderful way to have dynamic conversations. Otherwise, it would just be a little bit more mundane. So I wanted to commend the growth of the space from when we were all like, yeah, you're wonderful, we're so great at this, to like, hey, maybe I don't agree with that, So yeah, I check the box, First Nation woman. If there's a spot for me to fill up, I'm going to take it. I'm going to push my way in there, and I'm going to do it because it's important for me to have pride, because I'm a survivor of genocide in my own country. So there we go. Miigwech, nice to meet y'all.
Thanks, TP. I'm afraid Vasia couldn't hear you, but I could, and I appreciate you jumping on stage and sharing your point of view. Wow, you've got quite a few marginalized areas that you come from, Indigenous, First Nation, woman, and I like the fact that you're bringing to light more than just gender equality, but even languages, 600 different languages. I didn't know there were that many in the Americas. But yeah, I'm glad to see that you're standing up for multiple fronts, including the female front here. But yeah, and also thank you for being a first-time guest. I don't think that we've heard your voice before today. So thanks for building and advocating for the communities that you do. And I'm glad to see that we've got another strong woman that's been in tech since 1998. See, they do exist. So that's what we need more of, is people sharing those stories. TP, thank you for doing so. And we'd love to have you back up anytime here with us. I do see a couple more hands that I wanted to get to before we start to land the plane, so to speak. I know Catalina has been here with us for a long time. She's been very patiently waiting. I wanted to say hello to Catalina Uma, one of our close friends. And I see Sandy's got her hand raised, and also Malachi is with us. That'll probably be the three guests that we have a chance to speak to before we start to wrap up. But before we do that, Catalina, welcome to the stage. GM.
Let me know if you can hear me well. I hope Vasia can hear me too. Vasia, can you hear me? Because if you can't, that's...
Vasia's she usually texts me if she has trouble. I haven't gotten a text saying she can't hear you yet. So I'm going to assume that she can hear you, but I'm here.
I'm so happy.
She's got a thumbs up now, so you're good.
Okay,
you're good.
That's good. I'm good, because I'm joining from PC, and sometimes the PC version might just crash completely.
I have officially joined from a Finsta account. So Catalina, I can't hear you on my actual. I feel like the space has been hijacked. I don't know what Twitter is doing.
I know,
but
I know.
I'm anonymously listening from a different device. So I'm here with you.
Thank you so much, lovely. I think I know why the space has been rugged so many times, because we're talking so many interesting topics here. What is it to be a woman, and how is it to live in this very... This is going to be my TED talk for tonight, but I really want to share this, because don't get me wrong on this. I'm coming from a traditional Eastern European family. So this probably is even opposite of everything that people just mentioned. And I think with Vasia, we're kind of closer, because she's from traditional Greek family, and I'm just above that, above Greece. But what's the interesting thing? We grew up in a very societal and very judgmental type of environment. And the reason why I've been so patient, I raised my hand 2 times, and then I realized, no, I'm going to drop my hand. I'm going to wait for my turn because I know that I have my turn. But the reason why we're being who we are is because we grew up in this type of environment where we have to be respectful all the time. We have to wait for our turns. And if someone takes our turn, there probably is a reason for that. Most of the time, though, people who are taking my turn were other men. I'm sorry to say this, but in my traditional type of society, men were having like the what is it called? Few steps forward, like in front of me. So English is my second language. Forgive me if I'm looking for the right words to express myself. And in my growing up, I was kind of going through a rebellious stage. And I agree with Violet. I grew up in also an environment that did not have internet. And I'm so grateful for that because I was fighting with the boys. I was kicking boys' ass. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, HardArt. I didn't want to. No, but seriously, I was fighting with boys. Like hands, fists, because I wanted to make sure that I have a space among everyone, not just women, not just men, everyone. I was fighting my way to prove that I'm capable. And here I agree with Violet. Give me the opportunity and I'll find a way how to prove myself. I may not have the few steps forward. I may be at the bottom. I may be at the far behind. I'm going to crawl. This is how my mother taught me because she had to crawl her way up and deserve the place that she is today. And to make all these sacrifices because of her sacrifice, I'm here today. And she has been the leading force in my family. I'm also sorry to say that I know that there are many capable people, many capable men, and I want to give my take because just like Violet said, I'm not here to judge anyone. If you want to live your life, and this is how I learned, not when I was growing up, but this is something that I learned from my university years. And I graduated PhD with research about the human brain, how to be creative and innovative. And in those lines, there were no genders. In those lines, there were how to be creative mind, how to teach a person, a human being, to be creative, to solve creative problems, to be innovative, to be motivated every single day, and to fight for what they truly want to do every single day. I'm being here because I love what I do. It doesn't, and I've always thought, I'm going to put my art up there. It doesn't matter if it's Carolina. It doesn't matter if it's my real name, which is Petya, by the way. But people just have a hard time saying it, pronouncing it, so I'm going for Carolina. My first ever character was a male. And I'm going to tell you why. I started writing back at university 13 years ago with my colleague and co-author, who was also a female. But my choice of the first character that I ever created in my life was male. Why? Because we were living in a men's world, and I wanted to have at least my outer ego, just like Rachel said, my outer ego is a man, because I wanted that man to represent everything that I'm lack of, everything that I dream of achieving, not as a man, just as a person who has the same opportunities as a man. And I still love my character because I respect him and he respects me for who I am. And but the interesting thing that I also want to share, the older generation is more, more prejudiced towards me as a woman. And they see me as a threat. Why? Because I ask questions, because I want to learn more. And if something is not right, I'm going to just stand up and say, well, I don't think you're right. Like, I respect your decision, I respect your choice, and here is how I want to show you that it can get better. But the older generation kind of sees me as a threat, which kind of makes me a bit sad, because I know a lot of younger men my age and even younger, who are actually respecting my choice and respecting my knowledge. And what I realize is that Web3 has provided me with the same opportunities. Doesn't matter how many steps I'm back, because I'm far away in the distance in East Europe, somewhere in in the ninth like hole of the, yeah, we have the saying, somewhere at the very back, far back. Doesn't matter. I'm still here. I'm Web3. I have internet. I have my digital wallet. I have my opportunities. I have my skills and understanding and knowledge and skills, and I'm going to provide them. If people find them understandable, if people find them useful, and if I'm useful to people, if I can teach, I was a teacher, and I still am. I just work not with the normal curriculum at the university, because guess what? I was in a department of industrial design where, guess what? Everyone was men, and I was the only woman PhD student, the only woman who was also teaching, and it was a challenge. I can tell you that much. It doesn't need for me to go to US to see how it is here. It can be the same thing, might even be worse. I don't know. It depends. One thing that I noticed about this whole conversation, I'm a little sporadic because I want to share all the points that I've seen so far and all of the topics that I've gathered from this incredible women. I love the fact that everyone is giving their take from the perspective that they're coming from. And I'm going to take this all and I'm going to do my research on that, because guess what? I'm an artist, but I'm also a researcher. This is my occupation as a designer and researcher. But the interesting thing, I will agree with everything. That might sound a little strange, crazy, but I do agree with everything. Why? Because I acknowledge and respect that all of the other points and far places of the world that people are coming from. Everyone coming here is bringing their knowledge, skills, their experience, and everyone can teach me something that I've never experienced before. What my concern is a little bit is this division that's coming between West and East. Like, we're all tormented women. Doesn't matter what kind of challenges we've been through. We've all been through these. Our emotions and the fact that we are emotional being, we are nurturing human beings, and we are more prone to emotion, makes us embracing these challenges in a different way than men. Men might not take this so emotionally, so personally, but we will, because that's how nature is. We are, and this is why I believe, this is the other thing that I want to point out. Men should not feel threatened by us, because we and men are both sides of one coin. I'm not building my life to take someone else's place. No, I'm building my life that is corresponding to someone else's place. There is space for all of us, and I truly believe that, not only in Web3, but in real life. We don't need to compete with men. But men have lived so many years, centuries, thinking that if a woman is given a voice, she's going to overthrow them. Why? We're both sides of one coin. We coexist together. But if you try to break me and push me down to the ground, I will stand up again and I will crush you. No, not physically. No, sorry about that. But this is how it's turning into. This is the reality. This is why in US now women are trying to crush everyone else, because they haven't seen any other choices. And this is why Rachel is speaking about equity instead of equality, because they've been through so much that they don't have any other choice. That's their only chance. They see that if they don't crawl back and start to pushing everyone around so they can get to the top, that's their choice. That's their way. In my perspective, I don't want to do that. I want to keep growing alongside with people, not pushing them like with fists and elbows and just crawling out. No, that's not the way. But it's good that everyone is sharing their perspective, because I didn't know American history as much as I do it now through the eyes of people who are actually experiencing it. and people who've been there, people who are living this every day. I can tell you only my own experience from this part of the world, the Eastern European part of the world, which is just as challenging, but probably in a different way. So I respect all of your opinions. I respect all of your choices. I've been through a society that is very criticizing. And about the Vasia's comment, that we should shame. Maybe yes, maybe no, maybe. Um, the point is how you can, because here's the thing about human nature. Doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman. If you straight up starting to criticize someone, they're going to create a barrier to defend themselves. They're not actually going to hear what you truly want to tell them. And what you truly want to tell them is you want to teach them. You want to teach them that maybe their behavior is not the best for them. Maybe you want something better for them. So shaming, because I've lived through that in my younger years, in my childhood, it wasn't the best kind of choice. This did not help me. This created a trauma in me. But if you try and find a way how to teach them, because this is what we are. Leader is not someone who rule. Leader is someone who navigates and someone who teaches, someone who actually shows you the way, but you leave the people to walk on that path on their own. You're not forcing them. You're not criticizing them. You can navigate them just like a sailor, navigate through the waves of the sea, so you can find the next island and the best next opportunity. So that was welcome to my TED Talk. Thank you so much. I didn't know it's going to take so long, but thank you so much for listening to me, and I hope you find something useful. Go to you. Next to you, Vasia. Go on.
Hey, Catalina, thank you so much for sharing. I like that. It's a diplomatic response, even though you talked about beating up boys like me growing up. But I like the fact that you were able to stand up for yourself.
Not you
And
personally. No, not you. But
no.
yeah, I had to defend myself because boys were brutal when I was growing back in not middle school. What's the primary school? Yeah, our boys were very brutal, so I had to defend myself and the other ladies. I'm a big girl.
I only jest. I only jest. No, but I think you've got an interesting perspective, and you talked about perspectives being key here, and there have been a lot of diverse perspectives, like TP, who is just on stage, like you, from all over the world, all different walks of life, some traditional, some new school. Talked about equity, a lot of good points that I could go on and on about. Unfortunately, we are running short on time. And I did want to try, maybe 60 seconds is all I can offer. I'm so sorry. Maliachi Soul is on stage, I think, with us for the first time. So I did want to extend the mic very briefly. We also have some closing points. We always like to close with a couple recap points. Vasia wants to get to that before she's got to jump. So very, very briefly, Maliachi, if you want to come to the stage real quick, say hello. Literally can only give about 60 seconds. But GM, welcome to the stage. I'll give you the last point today.
Yo, GM, hello. Yeah, I'm basically repping Thug Nugs on Solana. We're a OG community, and we would love for some women in Web3 to join our community. So, we're available on Magic Eden. We're on Solana. We do have a meme token called Sauce, the ticker Sauce. I mean, I've only got 60 seconds, but yeah, we're a pretty OG community. We've got, I think, 270 members. There's only 700 total NFTs. It's like 0.8 sold to get in. If you have any questions about any of that, feel free to connect with me, and love to see you guys hosting this space. And
Thanks, Maliachi. Appreciate you joining. Do a favor, if you want some women to join, please post it in the comments. That'll live on past the space. You'll get a little more time to share your message there. So I do appreciate you taking the stage with us for the first time today. I'm afraid we might have to leave Sandy's hand up in the air, unless, Vasia, you might have another 60 seconds to give before we wrap, but I know you've got points you want to hit home before we close down the space. So, Vasia, I'll leave that decision up to you, my dear. Unless she's rugged, I can't hear her. Vasia, I think she's having trouble. So as she tries to regain her
Hey,
audio,
Can you hear
Hey,
me?
hey. Yeah, I
I
can hear
have
you
Violet
now.
DMing me speak. Sorry, I was listening from the Finsta and that was delayed, and now I'm back. So I did catch everyone's conversations. I guess I just want to quickly say, Catalina, thank you so much for sharing. And I love the fact that you come from such a loving and very mellow, just even listening to your voice. You talk a lot about coexisting, and I thought that was a beautiful example of, the masculine feminine energy and two sides of a coin, and I definitely think it's about that balance. I want to clarify, perhaps shaming, that word shame was a little aggressive, but similar to this conversation, it's just about having the conversation. And I'm not saying use derogative terms to describe someone or attack someone. I'm not at all coming from that place. I think someone dropped it in the comments as well. It's about coming from a place of love, and that's absolutely the type of energy I like to embody. But it was just, especially in a world where cancel culture became a thing, I just want to make sure that we're comfortable having certain constructive criticisms and conversations, because again, I just don't want to see certain behavior normalized. But I'm glad you mentioned it and kind of called me out so that I could clarify. I want to first of all say thank you so much to all of the speakers that contributed to today's conversation, and for everyone that's been hanging out, and especially if you've been here since the beginning, because this has been a long space. Shout out to everyone again for joining. I do like to wrap it up with some key takeaways, which brings me, I guess, very quickly to my first one, is just having a conversation is important. So again, in that world of cancel culture, people are scared to have conversations. And I think it can be so damaging, not just to an industry, but to society as a whole. We need to be able to feel comfortable to ask questions, to have constructive dialogue, and to agree to disagree. And of course, doing so in a very positive and professional way. It can be uncomfortable to have certain conversations, which honestly means you need a lot of courage to do so. So I applaud people that are able to express themselves and be authentic to themselves, just like Laura did today, who sparked the initial conversation. I mean, it takes a lot to be able to, put that out there. So a lot of respect to people like that. I also think it's important to Another key takeaway is just to advocate for what we want to see more of and not just comply or follow the herd. And I think I used that New York City subway example of like, it just takes that one person to jump in and to help, and then all of a sudden everyone begins to follow. And it's the same thing in our industry and in anything that we do. It's just that one person to ignite that spark, to lead by example, like many of the women that were on stage today. Hearing them speak, it's just so inspiring. So just continue being authentic, follow and do what feels right, and don't necessarily follow the herd. And something that has come up in the space in the conversation earlier is the importance of reputation. And for me, again, just my upbringing, reputation is everything. That was kind of drilled into us. But genuinely, money comes and goes, and all these other things, like, it's not as important as your reputation, because that will follow you wherever you go. And again, it's very hard to outgrow what people associate with you, but it's also, it doesn't necessarily have to be things that are true. So I think it's just a matter of being aware and conscious of how you might be being perceived. And, that's basically my wrap up of the key takeaways. I do want to quickly mention as we close out, first of all, happy holidays, everybody. I can't believe it's already end of December. Wishing everyone a happy holiday season. We are going to be off next week because our Wednesday space would fall on Christmas. So we're going to take the 25th off. Milton and I were talking prior to the space, and it looks like we're going to be doing a space on Monday instead. So on December 30th, we are probably going to do a end of year recap at the same time, 1 p.m. Eastern. So stay tuned for the information. I'll be posting it out. Would love to see a lot of the familiar faces on stage or listening in. And just going to one more time pin it to the top. Please make sure to follow. All the conversations get recorded and they get uploaded and posted to your favorite streaming platforms, just to, again, have that archive. So would really appreciate subscribing, following, showing some love. And again, thank you everyone for joining in the conversation. Milton, if you want to DJ us off, I don't know if you have anything else you wanted to add, but we can close it out here.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to take us out. And thank you to everyone who jumped up on stage today. I think we had a ton of diverse voices, and man, everybody was so diplomatic. I was hoping for more infighting, but alas, we're all friends at the end of the day. I love these takes. I took some great notes, as I mentioned, and if I had to guess, Vasia is going to do one of her amazing thread recaps. So I would keep an eye out for that. I would just remind you one more time before the space closes down that we do like to give away $25 of bogus. That's coming from me personally, but Wildy won that last week, and I'd love to give away some meme coins from a project that Vasi and I are both working on or passionate about. So $25 to you, going to the best comment that could come in any form. Last week, it was in the form of somebody who is doing something charitable for the community and doing something with a positive impact that they showed some great photos of. So I tend to like content, photos, and videos work out really well for the comments, but we've already got quite a few. This will be your last opportunity to add this to the comments. I'll be looking through those at some point today and choosing a winner. But we look forward to the 2024 recap coming to you very soon. And on that note, I think we'll play a funny song called Milkshake by Khalees on the way out today, talking about make sure you be a positive impact. Remember, everything lives on the internet forever.
Thanks for tuning in to Moments the podcast. If you enjoyed today's conversation, make sure to subscribe and follow us to keep up with all the latest trending Web3 topics. Join us every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern on X for our live space and be a part of the dialogue.